You're tuning in to the Mind Renewal Project, where you will learn the biblical principles and the practical application that will lead you to a life transformed by the renewing of your mind. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about the fire of faith. This is something that the Lord's been speaking to me for many years about how our faith and even His identity, His presence in our life is personified or represented by fire. The Lord Himself, through the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, appears over 600 times personified as fire in the Bible. And that's something I think we should take notice of. What does that mean? How do we see the Lord in that? And what is that application, the practical understanding and the practical engagement of that for us as believers today? So that's what I want to discuss. I recently wrote a book about this, and so it's really fresh. It's something that I have a lot of passion for. And through my research, which you always have to do when you write a book, it was just fascinating to me, this fiery love, this part of who God is that is personified as fire, how important that is for us as believers to grab onto. Because as we know, Jesus himself says in Revelation that it is better to be hot or to be cold than to be lukewarm, that he literally spits the lukewarm church out of his mouth. And so, how do we stay on fire for our faith? What does that look like? Are there spiritual disciplines that help us to kindle that fire? And then for me, one of my passions is how do we pass that on to the next generation? Because let's be honest, when we were younger, and if you're a younger listener today, it's not very appealing to look at those who say that they're Christian, who do some things in demonstration of their faith. They go to church, they have a book of devotional prayers on their bedside table. But you don't see the fire of that in their life. You don't see the celebration of it, the outward expression of it. That is what the younger generations are looking for, and why I believe what I've seen through 26 years of counseling, almost 3 decades of watching generations fall away from their faith. And it's because they're lacking an experience that would change their lives, that would keep them engaged with their personal relationship with Jesus. So that was the message that I wanted to convey in this book, is how do we stay on fire for our faith? How do we recognize how much the Lord loves us and pursues us with that, his own fiery presence? And then truly, how do we demonstrate that so that we can set the next generation on fire? And we leave a legacy of faith, a legacy that is so much greater than homes or wealth or a title, whatever it is that we might identify with. I want to leave a legacy. What would it look like to leave a spiritual legacy of generations upon generations who caught fire from your faith? In this book, there's some very personal stories and experiences that I've had. And I think it will really help the readers to make sense of their own times of feeling burnt out, of questioning the Lord. Why are some prayers just seem to never be answered? And for me, what the Lord began to show me actually pretty early on in my counseling career is that we need to have a new mindset. Which, if you're listening to this podcast or following me on the YouTube channel, you know that that is my mission and vision in life, is to bring a kingdom reality here to the earth and helping people to live fully the abundant life that Jesus died to give us begins with having that mindset. It's so different than that which we have in the world today. And so it takes intention to learn about the kingdom, to understand what does it mean to be a kingdom citizen, which it says in Ephesians 2, that is who we are. And then how do we continue to engage in that on a daily basis? Because we also know that the reality of that comes through renewing our mind. And we have to do that over and over. And one thing that I like to emphasize and encourage people with is you have to know that tension that we live in is normal, or you start to question yourself. Maybe I'm not a strong believer. I've, been listening to podcasts and sermons and reading these Christian self-help books forever, and I still slip into a worldly mindset. I still struggle with depression and anxiety. That is absolutely normal. And that is why it's not so much that you have the perfect kingdom mindset all the time, but that that is where peace and victory and freedom lies. And so you, as quickly as possible, you engage the Holy Spirit within you and you say, oh, I slipped into my worldly mindset. And you'll know that because you'll be miserable. And as quickly as possible, you will just say, I bring my mind, my emotions, my physical body back into alignment with the Holy Spirit. And then, Holy Spirit, show me where my thinking has gone wrong. What are the lies that I believe? What is not aligning both in my mind, my emotions with the kingdom reality? And so in this process, that living in the tension of, one foot in the world, one foot in the kingdom, the faster that you can recognize that you've slipped into that worldly thinking and then renew your mind, get in the word, proclaim, Bible verses over your life that will help solidify that kingdom perspective, the more time you will have victory. I promise you. I've been facilitating this and practicing it in my own life for over 2 decades now. And I'm telling you, this is the way that we will be strong, resilient, and healthy no matter what the world throws at us, no matter how our earthly circumstances are shaken. This is how we can be not only strong for ourselves, but that we have a faith that is enduring and perseverant so that we can be there for others. So again, what does that look like practically? That's always my favorite part of any type of teaching I do. Sometimes we have to set the foundation, help people have insight, but then I want to make sure people can walk away with something tangible. What do I put into practice? How do I think differently today? And so I will leave you with this, and I'm going to do a whole series on the Keepers of the Fire mindset. But for today, I want you, the next time you spend alone time with the Lord in your prayer time, to ask Him in His personification as fire to reignite that passion. Whether you are already on fire, you'll just burn a little brighter, or you too have felt diminished in the tiny flame that still exists, the burning coals that are probably covered up with a little ash. All it takes is just one breath, one blow from the Holy Spirit, and it will reignite once again. But it's an intentional prayer, meeting with the Lord, like Moses met with him at the top of the mountain, and his glory, his fiery presence was so tangible that the Israelites who were watching from the bottom of the mountain were actually afraid, because that's how fiery the Lord's presence was. That can happen for you today. In fact, that is my prayer for you. Right now, Lord, I pray that every listener under the sound of my voice is reignited in their faith with your love, your passion, your pursuit for them, and that they would begin to have an eternal perspective, that their prayers, although they may seem to be unanswered in this moment, that some prayers go on all into eternity and beyond, and that they are making an impact in ways that they simply do not understand yet. Lord, I pray that you will unfold some of that wisdom and revelation for believers, that they are so excited, that they are driven and motivated to pass on the torch of their faith to the next generation. And that this is something only your Spirit can do, Lord, that you would blow on the little embers that we have left of our faith, of our passions, and that a wildfire would break out in your church again. And so I bless you today to be a keeper of God's fire and to go and be kindling and to ignite a fire in someone else today. Thanks for tuning in to the Mind Renewal Project. To access valuable resources, go to kingdommindset.global or download the Kingdom Mindset mobile app today. Your kingdom destiny awaits, and it all begins with a mindset.